The Oklahoma City Thunder's first 11 games of the NBA season call to mind a 1980s sitcom, Growing Pains. I'm Mike Sherman, and this is Bringing the Thunder with Darnell Mayberry. Darnell, our NBA beat writer. We're going to talk about the growing pains of this team so far. The Thunder is 1-10 going into Wednesday night's game against the Clippers. Darnell, how is this team sort of handling adversity?
All things considered, I think they're handling it fairly well. They had that players-only meeting last Saturday after the 25-point loss to the Sixers in Philadelphia. And there were a lot of emotions shared in that meeting from everyone I've talked to on the team. It was a passionate meeting. It was a brief meeting, but it was passionate. People were basically tired of losing so many games, and not only losing them, but the way they're losing them. So, I think that sort of turned the tide a little bit. And now you're seeing them come out and play a little harder, a little bit more aggressively from the start, and I think that's helping this team.
There's a lot of young players on this team, and it seemed like some of the veterans had a hard time with how some of the other players were acting after games. What were you seeing there?
Well, it's still a young team, and I think, that's the thing that we all have to realize. And some of these guys are 20 years old, and, they're NBA players, they're professional athletes, but in terms of real life experience, you still have to realize that they're 20, 21, 22 years old. So, some of them might not realize that, the thing to do is win in this league. And it's not just going out there and having fun and being in a good jovial mood all the time. And I think that's what Nick Collison, I think you're referring to, was saying after that Philadelphia loss by being too happy in that locker room.
The Thunder has found itself way behind at points. 20, sometimes 30-point deficits. And that situation kind of makes it difficult to judge effort. Maybe not enough effort got them in that position, but their comebacks have come against teams that really, inevitably, there's a slack off. Once you get up by 20 or 30 points, maybe you let off. So how much can we read into their battles back into games? What do we know about that?
Well, I know one of the first times it happened against Utah out in Salt Lake City, they got up, I think, 31, and it was really turning into an embarrassment, and they fought back in that third quarter and made it a game in the fourth quarter. Utah did let up. You could see that those players, they were turning the ball over, they were careless with it, they started taking bad shots. So a lot of that was on Utah. But then there have been some games where you have to give the Thunder credit for the way that they've battled back, because Earl Watson has been a guy who hasn't given up this season in terms of on the court during those long droughts and blowouts. Desmond Mason has played hard. Nick Collison has played hard. It hasn't shown up in the win column yet, but I think those guys are really sort of playing hard and trying to play their way through extended droughts and large deficits.
So 11 games. About 1/8 of the season in the bank. Tell us what we can, what's fair to judge about Jeff Green so far?
I think what you're seeing out of Jeff Green is he's getting better as the season's going on. He started sort of slow to the season. He was averaging probably 8 or 9 points the first couple games. He's up to right around 15, 16 now. So he's getting better as he gets more comfortable. So I think that's a good sign with Jeff Green. He's playing a lot better with Kevin Durant. When Kevin's taking the bulk of the shots, and that's a good sign because those two obviously are the future, and Jeff's getting a lot more comfortable.
Also, his three-point stroke seems to be coming down. In fact, PJ's been asked several times, is he your best three-point shooter? He doesn't really want to point anybody out, but the stats say absolutely yes.
Right, he's shooting close to 50% from the three-point line, and that's a great jump from where he was last year. He was at 28%, I believe, last year. So for him to come out, he's almost in the top 10 in three-point percentage, and if he can continue to hit that, he could be the answer that we all talk about in terms of being the shooter that this team needs.
Also, with Jeff Green, you get a guy who can go out there and shoot from three-point range, but he can go around you. So that really changes the offensive dimension a little bit when he can draw the guys who's guarding him further away from the basket, and then he can get up and go around them. He's a guy who is consistently taking the ball to the basket.
He's creating a lot of matchup problems.
Yep, and that's going to be interesting to watch. Okay, what do we know about Kevin Durant so far?
Well, the good news is he finally broke out of his home slump, if you want to call it that. He was averaging 16 going into Monday night's game. So, if you want to call it a slump, call it a slump. But he definitely has played better on the road this season than he has at home. He scored 29 points last Monday night. So I think that's a good sign for him. He even said that it built his confidence, finally being able to get it going inside the Ford Center. So I think you're going to come out and see him Wednesday against the Clippers and Friday against the Hornets with that same aggression that he showed Monday night.
They've got to also be encouraged, don't they, that Ron Artest was switched on to Kevin Durant after McGrady got hurt, and Durant went around Artest a bunch of times. He fought through some screens and other things like that. But Ron Artest is the guy, when you put Ron on the other team's best scorer, sometimes the best scorer gets shut down. Durant ran him. He went around him, used his quickness. I thought that was really a good growth game for Kevin Durant.
Yeah, and also he had 7 rebounds, I believe it was. So he wasn't just scoring the ball. He had 7 rebounds, I think 4 assists, 4 steals. So he was doing it in all areas. And rebounding is one of the areas that he really wants to focus his game on as the season moves forward, because he's disappointed himself being 6'10" and not grabbing more than 4 or 5 rebounds a game. He wants to get up in that 6-7 rebound per game range.
Okay, Robert Swift has been starting lately. Is he now the starting center?
Well, technically he is. I don't think PJ's at the point, Coach PJ Carlesimo's at the point right now where he is going to say Robert Swift is our center. When you looked at it, he had 13, I forget what game it was, he had a career high tying 13 rebounds and 2 block shots. And then the next night I think he comes out and he has 2 rebounds. So he's still young. That consistency level is what you need to see out of him more often. And, until he develops that, I think you're going to see the platoon between Robert Swift and Johan Petro at that center position.
Yeah, a lot of people who are watching these games looking for positive signs and thought that what Robert Swift did in his time guarding Yao Ming was actually pretty good, and he battled him well and kept Yao away from the basket. Okay, let's talk about Desmond Mason. He's out, giving me the extent of his injury and who may be gaining his minutes while he's out.
Well, he's got a sprained right elbow. He's icing it. He's treating it as best he can. Your face is looking like, oh, no, not that David West mysterious elbow injury again. I don't think it's that bad. I don't think he's going to miss an extended period of time. I think it's going to be closer to 2 weeks, and then he'll come back. And you got to remember, Desmond's a tough guy, so I don't think it's too serious. Who benefits, I think, is Damian Wilkins. Damian Wilkins is a guy who had probably the best preseason on the team, and then he just hasn't had a chance in the regular season. So he got out there Monday against Houston, and he didn't look comfortable. It was only really his second extended playing time. So the more he gets to play, I think the better he'll be this season.
Another shooter on the court. Also, let's talk about Nick Collison. He had a tough game Monday night against the Rockets. Luis Scola really had a huge game, and it looked like Nick was just a step slow and, maybe an inch short matching up against a power forward like Luis Scola. What's Nick going through right now?
I think this is an early season slump for Nick Collison, and you have to remember, Nick Collison was a high draft pick coming out of Kansas, but so far throughout his career, last year was his career year, and he had 9-point-something points and a little over 9 rebounds. So Nick Collison is not a guy who's going to fill up the stat sheet. So what you're going to see out of him is more hustle plays. He's going to do the dirty work. A lot of what he does might not show up in the stat sheet. He's a pretty good rebounder for his size. I mean, he's overmatched by a lot of people in a lot of matchups. They have tough matchups for him. But I think he's a guy who you're going to see get on the floor for loose balls and sort of be the glue guy, not so much put up a lot of stats. But I do think he's in an early slump so far this season.
Could Robert Swift, establishing himself as somebody who can do major minutes at the center spot, could that end up helping Nick Collison? Because a lot of times you see Nick and he's matched up against a power forward or a post man who's 6'10", and he's right in there at 6'9". It seems like it's a very tough chore for him to guard.
I think the guy you look at is Joe Smith. Now, PJ said something the other day that he wants to limit Joe Smith's minutes because he is the oldest guy on this team. He's been around, 13-year veteran. But Joe Smith is, I think, a guy who can take a lot of those matchup assignments from Nick Collison and sort of help Collison along and sort of help his season. I mean, he's gotten off to a bad start, and Joe Smith is a veteran who's been around and knows how to play.
What about Chris Wilcox? He's been out for a couple games. Looked like there was talk that he was going to play Monday night against the Rockets. Are Thunder fans going to see him Wednesday and Friday when the Hornets come to town?
He's definitely supposed to play Wednesday. Now, again, he was supposed to play Monday. He suited up and he thought he was going to play, but He decided to rest him one more game. So he practiced yesterday. He participated in a shoot around Wednesday morning before the Clippers game. So he should play against the Clippers, and he should play Friday. He's going to be playing with a brace on his knee to protect that right knee injury that he sustained. So I don't know what his mobility is like. That'll be interesting to see, how he's able to move on that knee.
Finally, Russell Westbrook. The agony and the ecstasy. You see some tremendously athletic plays out of him. Then you also see a lot of turnovers and struggle shooting. Where is his maturation process right now?
Yeah, I think he's doing fairly well for where he is. I mean, you're like you said, he came out and he shot 3 of 19 against Orlando, but then, the ecstasy was the next night against the Knicks. He comes out and darn near puts up a triple-double, 19 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, I believe it was. Again, it was in a losing effort. And the good news about Russell Westbrook is he didn't care about that stat line. He wanted to win the game. So if he goes 3 of 19 and they win, he's happy. If he puts up a triple-double and they lose, he's not happy. So, I think that's the best thing about his character, his makeup as a ball player, is that he's never satisfied. He really just wants to win.
Interesting. The Rockets game on Monday night was one of the few times this year for extended minutes I saw them put Russell Westbrook, Jeff Green, and Kevin Durant on the court at the same time. That's a lot of youth out there, but it was also a lot of energy.
Yeah. Russell Westbrook was guarding Tracy McGrady, and, he's been hyped as a guy who can guard 1 through, 3, point guard, shooting guard, small forwards, and basically be a game changer on the defensive end. I didn't see that so much out of when he was on Tracy McGrady. Tracy McGrady didn't light him up, but he sort of got where he wanted to go on the basketball floor. Russell, to his credit, did make him pass once he got to the rim. So he's an aggressive defender, and I think that's going to help this team in the future.
Thank you, Darnell. Listen, to stay up with all the news and information and analysis on the Thunder, be sure to come every day to newsok.com, pick up the New Look Oklahoman, and check out the new NBA fan website here in Oklahoma City at thundermadness.com.